I'm Nick McDaniel. He's Myron Fancher. How the heck are you, buddy?
Welcome, folks. I am doing great today. I'm glad to be back on the airwaves. And we have a wonderful show laid out for you today. We actually just covered the first topic and quit, but we have a lot more to talk about today. And
That's right, man. This new format where we're discussing, here's the crazy thing. Let's first of all start. Little backstory here. So I had made Joe notes prior to Chamber, like the topics, these new big topics that we're doing, like the list, the what ifs, the missed, all that kind of, the theme style shows. I'd already had one already done, and then Saturday night happened and completely imploded the notes. And I was like, we'll do that another day. We've got to discuss obviously what went down, at the Elimination Chamber.
Mr. Cena wrote this show, unfortunately.
Basically, that is true. That he completely restructured it. But hey, before we get started, of course, we always want to remind you guys, make sure you're signing up on patreon.com/tapped-out-pod. Look, you get this show early. You get it a full day early. You're going to get the bonus content like the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight, only available exclusive on Patreon right now. It is a free show, but that's the only place you can get it. Even at the first paid level, you get the show notes early. There is so much stuff, and we talk about this all the time. So many just in-depth things in the show notes that we just don't even get to all of it. There's no actual way without the shows being 2 hours plus. So those notes are there on Patreon for you. You can go through those and kind of see what we didn't get to, share your thoughts and opinions on there. We greatly appreciate it. Tons of stuff like articles, reviews of Raw, Smackdown, Dynamite, all the PLEs, all that kind of stuff as well. All on Patreon. But look, we get it, guys. There's some people out there that are just YouTube watchers. Tappedoutpod.com. Make sure you're look, if you are watching us on YouTube, how else, if you're not on Patreon, you'd be on YouTube. So, make sure you're liking, subscribing, turning that little, click that little bell, just like it says right here on the thing. You see it, it tells you what to do. Subscribe, and then click the little bell to turn your notifications on. So anytime, because there are times, Myron, if you are a subscriber this week, somebody asked me, hey, would you ever do the indie showcase thing again? I said, absolutely. And they sent me J. Alpha Miller versus Rob Killjoy from Coastal Empire. We put that up this week, got a little scoop on them. They worked out a deal. They released their content on Thursday, but they were like, hey, you can have it early. So we put it up Monday, yesterday as we're recording. So there's going to be stuff that sometimes just comes back to the YouTube channel. So you got to have your notifications on. You never know when that's going to happen. So,
well, put your headphones on so we can get started.
They are on.
Where?
So again, thanks for asking me. We did discuss it on the Tapped In show. Like Me, the over-the-ear earbuds, new sponsor of the shows. It's in the show notes. There is a link for their website. Just click on it. Use the promo code TappedOutPod. That will get you a 10% discount on the website. Or you can go to Amazon. That link is there as well. Click on that. Currently, there is a $20 coupon that's just auto, with that link, it's loading in. You could check that little box there to get that code to get $20 off. I'm not going to get into the semantics of it right now at this very moment. I would suggest going to their website and using the promo Tapped Out Pod. It's a little bit cheaper in the long run. But if you're an Amazon person, hey, I get it. You want to go through Amazon, I totally understand. You're just going to pay a little more because of the deal they're running on their website. So that's me personally.
Get it right from the factory.
Get it right from them. Look, you may not get it in one day or whatever, 1 or 2 day, whatever the delivery is, but it'll save you significantly in the long run. So my personal suggestion is check it out. And whatever way works cheaper for you, absolutely. Like me, they're the Cozy Fit G1s. I'm checking them out for them, and I did it on the Tapped In show. Worked really well. Obviously, they're working really well. So I don't know. Maybe I need a couple more pairs. I was like, I'm gonna hit them up and go like, I got 2 other guys that host these shows with me. I'm gonna need 2 other pairs as well. So,
well, I've got a lot of
lightweight.
stuff.
You would like it. You would like them. They're super lightweight, 0.2 ounces.
0.2 ounces.
Yeah, they're super light.
Well,
so
I've got to lighten up a lot of stuff because I got this thing and I got this I wear all the time, and then I got my Lucky Charm that spins. It reminds me to never give up. Yeah,
Well, did he give up is the question, though. That's the $1 million question. You know, now in hindsight.
Well, I didn't mean to take my glasses off, too, people who watch this video. What am I going to do with all my Cena merch, Nick?
I would hold on to it. I think it's a long-term investment, not a short-term investment, but that's just my opinion. So I would, so look, before we get in, this week's topic is the top 10 heel turns of all time, thus inspired by the John Cena this weekend. Before we get into that, we obviously are going to discuss, we're going to stay out of the areas where we would get into, as far as into the actual top 10 heel moment stuff. But I got to start with, I saw your post the other day joking about it. Because here's my thing. And I don't know if you saw Gary Lamb's post about this. People are arguing, so I'm going to handle this in steps. One, I saw your post about who predicted it first. I honestly, I joked about it a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I wasn't 100% serious in the sense, if that makes any sense. I mean, No,
I mean, how can you seriously predict this? And I'm, we were at Wrestling Saturday night at the Southern Fried Show, which was a phenomenal show. And we come home, they did their Elimination Chamber, come home, didn't get a chance to get up Saturday, get to watch half of it. Then we have to go do our Sunday. We go to a chili cook-off, we come back. And I'm trying to watch. By then I saw social media spoilers. I knew what was going to happen. I'm just like, what's happening? What's happening? I got to watch this. And my daughter was home from college for spring break, and she sat and watched it with me. She's 21 years old, Nick. And she's like, Dad, I don't feel right about this. Dad, this is not. And then she started coming up with John Cena memories I didn't know she had. John Cena has touched all of our lives.
Would you know who texted me?
Who?
Erica texted me, friend of the show. She texted me and she was like, how could John do this to us? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, and here's the thing, Gary's post, this is where I wanted to get into Gary Lamb's post. It was kind of basically, I'm paraphrasing, everybody on the internet, I predicted it. I saw it coming. And, look, that's because now the thing to do, and just by the way, I'm including myself into this. The thing to do is you do a hot take, and that's something that's so far-fetched. So if it happens, you were right. And if it doesn't, I mean, you know what I mean? You're like,
nobody's going to remember. Nobody's going to remember what you post on Facebook because it goes away so fast.
Right.
Life travels so fast. So, we're wrestling podcasters. Nobody.
So here's the thing. If you go back, it's 2-3 weeks ago, I joked about it. And I'm being full honesty about it. I joked about it. I didn't really think it would happen. I'd heard this thing about maybe this happens, and it's yeah, but that's because there's some Yahoo just throwing it out there because it's a hot take, and that's why it works. But yeah, I honestly don't think I ever thought I saw this coming.
Not for real.
Right.
I mean, and then you went back and forensic, you did their Law and Order Special Wrestling Unit and went back and analyzed everything. And you watched the press conference, which I always forget to do. And you went through and
dare I tell you, and listen, I would love to get feedback from listeners, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. The press conferences to me are becoming as almost much watch as the PLEs and the other shows because Triple H is going to do what he does, and there's lots of cool things that he covers, numbers, figures, and and all that kind of stuff. John Cena's, by the way, was absolutely social media perfect. He walked out, dropped the mic, walked right back out, never even said a word. Awesome. Fits what they're going with. The Rock, actually, his press conference gave away tons of things. And, I would love to be like, hey, all these things. And I just highly recommend if you have not watched it. Now, you got to be an in-the-weeds kind of a wrestling person, in my opinion, to really appreciate what happened at that press conference. And I am that guy. So there was lots of cool details. He points out about, I think, we'll get there in a second, but I'm going to ask you this. There's a part of me at this point that thinks that Paul Levesque, Brian Gewirtz, Rock, the creative team as a whole, I think they're trolling people on the internet now. I literally think they're trolling people. And here's why. I'm going to tell you why. When Vince McMahon ran WWF, stuff leaked all the time. And they would be right a lot of times. Every now and then the old plans changed, but a lot of stuff they were right. I will bluntly tell you, I safely think people are full of it when they're posting stuff now. Nobody saw Jey Uso winning. Nobody saw, there are things that constantly are happening in WWE. Nobody predicted, because it's very much like it's on a need to know basis. Triple H actually, they said, ran production for the last part of the chamber match because he only knew what was happening. So he had to tell the cameras where to go, what we're doing or whatever, because even a lot of the production people had no clue what was about to happen. Now I'm really going to blow your mind. Here, I wanted to keep this for you because I wanted to see your reaction without you knowing this because you didn't watch the press conference. During Rock's press conference, somebody asked him, like, were you prepared for the fans to react in Toronto like a different way? He said yes. And what he said was, they're very much familiar with how, when Hogan Rock was there in Toronto, the fans
It was there?
No, it wasn't in that build, but I mean, it was in Toronto. So that Rock Hogan was in Toronto. That's why they got the reaction they got. And so Rock's take was, they were prepared. If you will notice, the moment Cody said, "Go F yourself, Rock," when he did that, there was a massive pause. If you go back and watch it, they soaked that moment in, and because Rock was like, we were waiting to see the reaction we got, and we were going to react accordingly. So, now here's Nick as a long shot. I get it. I'm probably wrong. I think one of two things. I think when they went to that ring, I think there were two directions. They were. By the way, it also fixes the thing. Like if they had been malleable like this back when Austin turned in, at WrestleMania 17, then maybe they call that audible. I believe when Cody makes that reaction and says, this is a conspiracy theory as Nick gets on a wrestling thing. Because those fans popped when he told him that, did they not?
Yeah. John Cena popped.
I believe that was the reaction they wanted. My theory is, if he does that and the crowd boos Cody, I think they go in a different direction.
Cena turns on The Rock?
No, I think Cody turns.
On Cena?
Or something. I mean, why not, right? And then he kicks Cena in the nuts. And he turns and joins Rock because they trick him.
Have we even talked about the fact we're getting this as a WrestleMania match?
We're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah. So I think, because what happens is that when they all back up, he said, without getting into the weeds too much, he's like, he says it, we get the reaction, and everybody, if you look, they're all three kind of like looking at each other, and then Rock gives Cena the Iggy, like, all right, we're doing this. Cena does the walk up, the hug, and then the throat slit, bam, and it happens. That to me is cool because, and you could tell Rock was like, this was cool for him, that we're like going to listen and we're going to actually go like react to what they want, and we're going to give them the direction that they want. Now,
seems very mobbish, mafia type thing. Yeah. You betrayed the family, or
yeah. By the way, there's another piece of key information I want to throw in here. He said a lot of people are going to say The Rock made the decision to turn, and it's what Rock wanted to do, and he's like, no, that's not true. The Rock is a conduit to do what John wanted to do. Like, John wanted to do all of those things, and then The Rock proceeded to go down this long narrative, all of the things that didn't make sense and people hated it. Rock's a babyface, he's a heel, or he did this and that didn't mean anything. The throat slit at Bad Blood didn't mean anything. And he kind of basically took a major point of saying all of those things mattered, you just didn't know it until now.
Everything mattered. Everything matters. It's like I have to pay super attention. Now I pay attention anyway, but now I'm going to have to be like crypto wrestleology. I'm going to have to look back and analyze every single thing. This is awesome. And do you think they did the right thing by not? I mean, they talked about it all through Raw, but they didn't have anyone out to make statements about this.
Listen, Rock is gone. Cena flew. So in the press conference, he also announced. Here's the other thing: if you don't think John's committed to doing WWE stuff, he was in Budapest the day before. He flew in to do to PLE, and literally went when he dropped the mic. He left, jumped on a plane, and was flying to Africa to continue filming. So like this guy in a matter of 2 or 3 days was going to be on 3 different continents. To complete all of the projects he's working on.
I've never even been on one continent, and not very many places on that continent.
So that's why. Look, and he announced that it's going to be a while. Like John's going to be gone for a minute, and basically he kind of put out there. John Cena did on I think it might have been a tweet post or something, or tweet or whatever, but it kind of implied like, hey, I'm giving you some time to. Y'all can yap and get ready, then I'll be back. And then it's game on. I think like the last 3 weeks before Mania. We're going to get the full John Cena heel run the last 3 weeks leading into Mania. Lots of stuff. I mean, there's a million things from Sunday, right, about where do we think this goes. The questions become, and I don't want to answer these today. We're going to we got 6 weeks to Mania, right, or so.
Jade Cargill. Didn't know anything about that. Didn't see that coming. Did you see that coming? Didn't see that coming. She goes in the ring and
again, we knew it was coming at some point, but not at Chamber. We didn't see it coming the way it played out.
Just whoop Naomi's ass.
Yeah. And obviously the show notes are going to change because it says Bianca wins. Now she'll face Rhea. Well, last night on Raw, Io Sky picks up a win and now is the new champion.
Are we going
to get Belair versus Sky now?
Or could it change again?
My prediction is it becomes like a triple threat or 4-way or whatever. It'll be something like – I would not be stunned, by the way. The women's division is so stacked right now, and I understand there's this huge movement we're seeing on social media now that right now the women's stories are some of the best stories in WWE, and they should be main eventing Raws and Smackdowns and PLEs because of how far they've come and as far as where their position on the card is versus some of these other things. Nothing's going to override the story with the Rock and Cena, etc.
The Chamber itself, if we just judge the Chamber matches themselves, I thought the women's was better. Because it's always easier to believe women get mad enough at each other to get brutal. It just, to me, when Bianca was whipping Liv with her hair, and then when Liv had Bianca by the hair and was bouncing off the ropes into the cage, that stuff, yeah, I mean, I believe that, and it's high drama. I mean, damn.
And so I think that's where we're probably heading. I wouldn't be stunned, by the way. I wouldn't like it. I'm not saying I'd like it, but I wouldn't be stunned if we end up in like a 4, 5, or 6-way match for that title. I mean, because right now you could argue Ripley, because Sky's your champion, Ripley, Bliss, Morgan, blah, blah, like rattle off a bunch of other women and put them in there.
I think Bliss is grossly outgunned now coming back. She is small and she doesn't have the kind of stuff Roxanne Perez has. She's not anywhere in Rhea.
So you mean to tell me she's different than all the rest of them?
She's different, yes. And that's a great attraction to have different. But I don't know if
she's clearly going back into that group because they did the thing so I'm sure she's going to be I bet she becomes the leader.
She should, because
she'll be the last.
Is not Bray, and he apparently had an injury or something, had to be cleared from recently. So I don't know.
So her as the leader to me, I like that because there's still more of a. Here's the dumbest thing I'm probably ever going to say. Even though Bo's his brother, I still feel like she was more of a conduit to the old story and the character than Bo was.
Yes.
So I can see her taking over the group, going, and be like, she was always the one. She just wasn't around, but she was always the one in control. So that could make sense. So
Yeah.
the only other thing about, look, I guess we saw a little bit of Randy. Maybe it looks like he may be the Owens opponent going into, hopefully
That
the
match
same.
was pretty tough. I mean, that was a pretty brutal match. Does it go from Sammy to Randy that quickly? Are we done with that, or can they
I
pull that
hope so.
Sammy Owens out whenever they need it?
Yeah, it's in case of emergency. They both need a feud. When they both need a feud, you just break the ice. I agree.
It works for me. I mean, it's always good.
Yeah, it always plays out well. So I'm a fan. So whatever. Hey, before we jump in, I wanted to ask you, because I know we record on Tuesdays. For all the Patreon members, they're fully aware of that. A lot of the people that watch on YouTube aren't aware of that. So we record actually prior to NXT, so we were out of sight. You were super pumped about NXT last week because the Hardys were going to be on there, et cetera, et cetera. And they were. And then since we've recorded, not only did they appear on NXT, they had a great showing on NXT, of course. And then all of a sudden there's merch and there's all the stories of, hey, more TNA people are going to be on NXT's Roadblock or whatever it's called. And then more people in NXT are going to be on TNA. And because TNA is doing their, we talked about how their pay-per-view is going to be Thursday leading into, WrestleMania weekend. So it's just the collaboration's going crazy. So I knew you were jacked about it. So I was going to ask you what you finally thought when you saw it.
Hardys look good. They've lost a step, but they still had 2 steps ahead of just about anybody else. It was so good to see them and Jeff especially kicking. And this week, I can't wait to see what they're like versus Fraxium. They're such a Fraxium. I mean, it's weird when you have an NXT tag team. That's one of the best tag teams in the world, and the Raw tag team division is crap. But man, the Hardys and them tonight. Looking forward to that.
So it's a given, right? That at some point, I don't know how long of the deal they signed with TNA, because the Hardys apparently signed a deal with TNA. I mean, they got to be back in, they're on the main roster, within the next 6 months to a year, right?
By Mania to get a Hall of Fame.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I think that's.
Let me ask you, we're going to have a Hall of Fame episode, and I think, hey, here's the one. If tappedoutpod@gmail.com, if we get enough submissions, I'm curious as to maybe we do one of these top 10 shows or whatever, but between now and Mania, of top 10 people who are not in the Hall of Fame that should be in the Hall of Fame. And the reason I want to wait a little bit is I really have a gut feeling that one that everybody's pushing for, Lex Luger, that's not in there. I have a vibe he's going to get in this year for some reason. I don't know why.
He's been on a publicity, I'm okay, I'm a better guy tour lately. So hopefully, it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah.
It'll really be interesting.
So we'll see. But then
anyways, how good does it feel to be excited waiting for Monday Night Raw to kick off, like you did when you were a kid, or I mean not a kid, but 25 years ago we were what? It's been 25 years of Raw, hadn't it?
It's been more, but we were.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I mean, we were young men. I mean.
Okay, so we were younger men, and we were excited about anytime wrestling came on TV, and I feel that way again. So, and the only thing that'll keep me out from in front of a PLE these days is going to live wrestling to see people I know personally work. Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I mean, and we're jacked in general, man. But like I said, send those tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Top 10. Who's your list of guys that are not in? And maybe we'll run with that. We'll see who we get the most votes for and stuff at tappedoutpod@gmail.com. But today we're talking about top 10 heel turns of all time. Look, this is all subjective, and we get it, folks. So at the end, you can comment if you're on the Patreon. You can comment or send yours tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Let us know. Did we miss the list? Did we make it right? Who knows? But I've got a whole laundry list of them here. And let's start. Yeah, you vote. Just give us your takes. I mean, we're good with that. Just put your top 10 in, shoot them out. We're good. Let's start at number 10, Myron. This, to me, obviously, was at a time when this is another one of those like, hey, I never saw this coming. I literally was like, brokenhearted when it happened. And that's the big infamous Mark Henry turns.
This
Yeah.
Mark Henry was crying, man. It was you were buying in that this is the end of the world's strongest man's career. He's
Yeah.
talked about going home to be with the baby that cries every time he leaves the house to go out
And he
on
did
the
that.
road.
Daddy's coming home.
Daddy's coming home. And then John Cena comes in and he gets, I don't remember what the name of that slam was, World's Strongest Slam,
World's Strongest Lamb. Yeah.
and just flattens Cena out in the middle of the ring, takes his belt, holds it up. This is going to be mine, and then leaves. So many emotions.
Yeah. So clarifying it out, I don't know if we did a great job. Mark Henry turning heel on John Cena, June 17th, 2013's Raw. Look, I mean, Henry had had a great run. Everybody thought he was kind of at the end, and he just felt like he had to have that title run. He wanted that. He wanted to take John Cena's belt, and absolutely still to this day, I tell people that retirement speech stands, among some of the best segments that they ever pulled off on a Raw. The salmon coat. That's what it is. Yeah, it was the salmon coat. Yeah.
You just believed it. I really, they sold me and they sold the whole crowd. So the crowd was shocked and they didn't know what to feel because the guy that had just won their hearts did something so horrible.
Yeah. And look, we get it. Like, I know it didn't last forever and, it was, and he didn't, by the way, he didn't even win the title in this thing, which kind of, but it did solidify, to me, it did solidify him as a top tier guy. Like
I've always loved him.
As we're going through the conversation and all the emotions and the thoughts about the Cena heel turn, it is kind of ironic that we always say, though, you're kind of, there's certain people you can have a feud with that kind of make you. John Cena's that guy. Yeah. So, for Mark Henry, that's why that transition happened so well. So, Anyway, number 9, Seth Rollins betrays the Shield. The Plan B, Triple H's Plan B, June 2nd, 2014 on Raw. It's the infamous, you've got Dean Ambrose at the time.
Hey, that day after a pay-per-view, man, that's the one you got to watch. Turns and all that kind of stuff. Nick, you see evil Triple H. I loved evil Triple H with his sledgehammer out there standing next to Randy Owens. Not Randy Owens. He was the lead singer of Alabama.
Randy Orton, but yeah.
The Randy Orton. And then he makes that signal to Seth, and Seth sneaks back and pulls out the chair and just wails on Roman. And Dean is standing there looking like an idiot, like, oh, okay, give me my chair shot now. And that's pretty much my Dean Ambrose impression.
And here's the thing. It was a massive deal because basically, look, and I know he's zigged and zagged, but primarily that kind of was the launching point for Seth becoming the guy. He was the top heel. Oh, yeah. He was, now granted, a lot of people are like, oh, you were the authority puppet. You weren't really the guy. I'm like, no, he was still the guy. I mean, he multiple title reign, and so forth and so on. I mean, it made him really kind of who he is.
Well, I think it was just, it separated Roman out too.
Long term, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It gave Ambrose, made him short man, I think. And I think that's why he eventually left. He was short man of the three. He just wasn't up to those guys.
Yeah, I mean, because like I said, in the short term, it was it split the Shield up and got them into individuals. And look, I know you're not a big Moxley fan, but here's my argument. Over the last 4 years, how many title reigns do you have between Dean Ambrose / John Moxley in AEW, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns?
Oh God, yeah.
That, I mean, they did go on. The Shield did go on to become essentially a dominant force in pro wrestling, even though it was in 2 different promotions and with multiple different titles and whatnot. So, it served its purpose, but I think that was the launching pad of those 3 guys to take them. We always talk about in factions how there's always usually a guy who splinters out. Now, let's all be fair. I'm being fully honest here. Roman Reigns is probably a notch above the other 2, but they still all have done really, really well and are all top guys.
Well, Roman got to go part-time first,
Well, he just reached the level of stardom. I think that was kind of there. So that was number 9. Number 8, look, I am a little old school, so Here's the thing. I almost kind of struggled a little bit because I can't tell you how many Dusty not Dusty turning, but people turning on Dusty that I wanted to do. I just pushed away and said, look, you're super biased about anything that involves Dusty, so don't do any Dusty ones. But back in the day, the fabulous Freebirds, when they turned on the Von Erichs and said, let me ask you this, because this happens in 82. Like, this is a long time ago. Do people today, I don't know that, how am I trying to phrase this? I don't know that anyone today can grasp how hot that was in the time that it happened.
No. See, I was 10. I didn't get to see this wrestling as a child. I got to see it as an adult. I watched it last night for a refresher. That crowd was already hot as hell before this happened.
You have to remember, this is because this is a Kerry Von Erich going after Ric Flair. Like, he was chasing the NWA World Title, back when that title meant what it meant at the time.
And you had a referee and you had Michael Hayes in the ring. Okay. And Michael Hayes is going on and on. Eventually, Michael Hayes gets frustrated. He knocks out Ric Flair. Flair's always covered in blood. Ric Flair and he tells Kerry to pin him, and Kerry won't pin him, and Kerry won't pin him. And it's just, and he leaves. And as Kerry tries to exit the ring, he gets, it almost looks like they made that decision right there. Like it was like, the hell with you, Kerry. And Gordy slammed that. But why was Gordy in gear?
Gordy's always in gear. Gordy's always ready to work.
But the thing about it was, Nick, I'd made the comment earlier to you. If that crowd had been mic'd up the way they mic a crowd up now for Raw, I wouldn't have ears left.
Can I tell you why I saved this? Because I wanted to ask you if you think I'm right here. I tapthatpod@gmail.com. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Tell me. Here's why. Good, bad, or indifferent, those people all believed 100%.
Oh, there was not a single person in there that didn't.
A lot of the crowd today is ready to chant, "This is awesome," cheer the heel because they like his work in the ring and stuff like that. And I'm not. Yeah, I am. Okay, I was like, I'm not crapping on it. Like, maybe I am. But it's really hard to pull. Like, it takes something the level of the Cena thing to get people to react like that, because today they're not as emotionally invested typically in the storyline that they were then. Because, and if you don't think I'm right, by the way, I mean, what this catapulted, it set in motion a Freebirds versus Von Erich feud that literally, in my opinion, put world class on it, just back and carried it. Just carried it.
Oh God! I mean, the Von Erichs. I mean, Kerry Von Erich. Every woman in that building wanted to be with him, and every man wanted to be him. Okay, he was as good looking as it got. He was incredibly talented. He was a man. He was just a physical specimen. And it was so real. It was so real. And God almighty, this girl squealing like they had just been, like their husband had died in the war.
And they took it to the nth degree level of, because they were the pride of Texas, and they would carry that Texas flag to the ring. So then, of course, the Freebirds start carrying the Georgia flag, which at the time had the old bars and stripes. Yeah. We're not getting into that, but there were, so you can't do that now. I mean, but it generated legit heat, a real deal. Like, we hate these people, and it was just, like, that's the kind of stuff. Like, I should do it. We should look it up. And if you're going to send us a list, I want somebody, Huckabee, I want a list of what you consider the top 10 heel turns prior to, like, the 90s. Like 1989 and
prior to number one, prior to our number one choice.
No. I want pre-9. I want 1989. And the reason why I want like territory promotion turns, not once you actually had a, like, WrestleMania 1 is kind of like iffy where you start drawing that line because like some of the promotions were still there. I would say 3 and on, like WrestleMania 3
Well,
and
3
after.
was a massive turn. Jesus
So
Christ.
yeah, I know, but I'm saying like if I would want that list, that's a challenge to friend of the show Huckabee. Like we want the top 10 pre
Or
like or
Mr.
top
Ray.
10 territories.
Retro Ray, if you're seeing this, pop that one in there too.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. So that was number 7. Let's go to number 6. Shawn Michaels turning on Marty Jannetty. This was again from this is 92, so this is kind of like post high school, like a year. What? Oh, sorry, I completely missed 7. Sorry, my bad.
But let's do 6. We're on it.
No.
Okay.
We'll come back. We'll come back to it. We'll go in order. 7, Roman Reigns turning heel. Look, I'm not going to dive into this because I'm looking at the clock. We're not going to dive a ton into this, but here's why it matters. But just pure and simple, it literally launched the trajectory of the tribal chief.
Out of nowhere. It was a COVID dome match. You remember how messed up those were? And trying to get crowd reactions from all those people sitting on TV screens in that little bitty room down at the Performance Center. And they were still as hot as you could get. Roman just shows out of nowhere in Spears Bray. Just nuts. Just nuts.
I mean, look,
short term. Uncomfortable though, watching that in the dome, COVID dome. Ugh.
There's a lot of that period we just kind of block out of our memories at this point because, TV was just not. TV and movies in general were just not good enough. Let's be honest with you, folks. It just wasn't a lot. We were watching like Tiger King, so we know TV was bad at the time. Long term, we got the tribal chief. We got the bloodline story essentially out of this, so obviously that's why it matters. So now let's pick it up at number 6. Marty Jannetty getting thrown through the glass window on the barbershop. Shawn Michaels. You could make a case that this should be higher on this list, in my opinion.
Oh man. I'll give you a secret about this. I learned this was shot 5 weeks before they aired it. I was watching a Matt Hardy breakdown of this. They shot this 5 weeks before they aired it, and it was, to me, that crazy cartoonish last of that crazy cartoonish stuff, where with the bad stages and all that. They might be bringing it back with the Judgment Day a little bit, but they had that stupid barbershop, and you had Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan that called the reaction to it, called the whole thing. Marty says, I'm going to turn my back. You walk away if you want to. And he turned around. Shawn super kicked him, pushed him through the window. God, Brutus looked like hell. He looked like he'd been suntanned and floating in a river for 2 days. But how, Nick? This sets Shawn up as just the bad boy.
Yeah, this was why does this matters? This is, again, tag teams. Things happen, fall apart. Hey, we got to, one guy's going to spiral out of it and become the star. And I don't know that in the short term, like, look, let's be honest with you, the short term, like the feud with Marty was over, in my opinion, like, I don't want to say too fast. It felt like it at the time. But long term, like, some people could argue this. And this is a great argument. Shawn Michaels, the greatest in-ring performer of all time. Some people say that, and that's some people's stance.
It's look what he's doing with NXT. Look how great, just what he's done there, the talent he's built there at NXT. And look what happened to Marty. Okay, if it hadn't been for Marty giving him this tool to get him over, would he have been down at NXT now? Or would he have flamed out and his career not done this? So this was big.
Yeah, I'm
not as big as 5. I'm so excited about this one.
Number 5, Andre turning on Hogan, on a Piper's Pit, February 7th, 1987. Obviously, this all roads led to, the big showdown eventually. But here's why was this such a big deal? People don't, again, this is 87, so there's a whole generation of fans who absolutely no idea why this is such a big deal. Andre had never realistically, I should say, never really been like bad guy. He was always just a baby face. I mean, he was a big, lovable giant.
It was, and you can think of all the talent out here. Jesse the Body Ventura introduced him. He was out on the stage when there with Piper and Hogan, prime era Hogan, just glistening. Andre comes out. Bobby the Brain is walking in front of him and doing the talking for him. It was just glorious. And then Hogan does that epic Hogan promo, and Andre, after all this, is like, is he ever going to talk? Is he ever going to talk? And then Andre talks, and then rips his shirt and cross off. And Roddy, at the end, Hogan's like down on his knees. Roddy's like, "You're bleeding." It was so old and so much. I wasn't old enough to drive by myself to go to the video store to rent this on VHS. That's how old this was. I had to get it right because I didn't never get to see pay-per-views when they happened, and I had to watch like whatever this. I got this on All Stars probably, or wherever I got to see it. So I was hyped for WrestleMania 3. It happened. Then it came out on VHS, and got Mom to take me. I think whatever the place was in Clear, Alabama, to rent this, and it's still this match. They set up a match I couldn't wait to see.
Yeah, obviously look, short term, what happened leads to WrestleMania 3, biggest match up to that point, the biggest house in history, obviously the big stadium, the greatest arguments of how big of the crowd actually was, all that just madness in that in itself. But I think in the long term, look, I know Hogan was on the trajectory. He was on the way. This was essentially, let's call it what it is. Andre passed the torch to Hogan, and Hogan became the man. And like he would go on for another, you could argue, 15 to 20, 25 years, of being.
Now, don't ask him. Don't ask him how long he's continued to be the guy, because he'll stay still continuously. But this made Hogan. I mean, this really is what, Hogan was okay, but you put this together. WrestleMania 1 was Mr. T, right? And Cyndi Lauper. Okay.
It was number 1 was Hogan. Hogan, T versus Piper and Orndorff.
Okay, so you still had to have celebrities. This did not require celebrities. I didn't give anything. I care less who else is on the card. I just wanted to see this.
Yeah.
It changed me as a wrestling fan. Seriously.
Listen, I think it changed wrestling. They needed the Andre turn because they needed it to have the big match, to have the big show, to get the big launch into where Vince finally put the pedal to the metal and took off to what WWF at the time, became down the long stretch. So now, again, led to a Mania thing, which brings us to 4, which is another Mania moment. Look, we have literally talked about this 3 weeks in a row now. The what ifs, the missed opportunities, and now we're going to talk about it in the heel turns. I'm not saying we're like it's our favorite moment, but Austin turning on The Rock at Mania 17, where he basically goes heel and joins Vince. It's still one of the most shocking ones. I put it up there on a huge list of shocking turns, because at that moment, every bit of the money, in my opinion, was that Austin was the babyface.
Oh yeah, and this is one of those matches I wonder if it could have gone either way. You ever get that feeling? Maybe they were reading the crowd. Maybe it could have gone either way, because Vince hands him that chair, and it just winds up. He just beats the hell out of The Rock.
Yeah, so we teased this earlier when I said I wished they were as malleable as they were when the whole Rock, Cody Cena segment happened. If they could have been there now, because look, Austin has brought it up in hindsight, and then look, again, 3 weeks in a row we've had this conversation. If he has said, if he could do it over again, he'd have called it audible and stunned Vince, and just like, we're going to make it audible, boop, do it or whatever. Because here's the thing, I think, it gave him the opportunity. They did that comedy stuff, like the him and Angle and the him and Triple A. Yeah, we did. It was okay, but in the lots of stuff that I just don't think in the long run people wanted, though. People wanted Austin to drink beer and kick ass. Like, that's what people wanted. So even though I think it is one of the most memorable ones, I don't necessarily say I like it as far in the long run either.
Yeah. It's, they do that thing. They let you emotionally bond with a person. And for John Cena, they've let you emotionally bond with this guy for 25 years. And then when they turn, that's why these turns mean big deal.
Yeah. Number 3, Triple H turns on Shawn Michaels, July 22nd, 2002 on a Monday Night Raw. Shawn had been gone. Shawn returns. And essentially, let's to the nuts and the bolts. It was a Triple H. He attacked him during a DX reunion, gave him a pedigree, and we were off to the races. And they had some really good matches. I don't know if a lot of people remember this. We got a great title match. A lot of stuff happened out of this. It was a great run. In the long run, though, let's talk about it.
I mean,
Triple H, he would become the guy, kind of, sort of. Let's be honest. He was kind of, sort of, one of the guys in WWE when Shawn left, and we had your Rocks, Austins, and everybody kind of. I think he needed something like this because Shawn was the guy. Him coming back, and basically, it's almost kind of like Triple H had the, you're not coming back and getting my spot. Like, I've worked really hard. I was out of your shadow. You're going to come back and not cast your shadow over me. And in the long run, how ironic is it that now these are the two guys that are basically running the big company, NXT, whatever.
DX. Everybody's there but Billy, which blows my mind that they haven't gotten him in there too.
Let that contract run up. Maybe at some point, we'll see. Who knows? But yeah, so I was this one. I was really kind of in a window of watching again. Like I had, you go in and out or whatever. I was in, and I was all about this feud itself was really good because they put on some really, really good matches.
Well, he did the whole promo. They had been on Raw and SmackDown. Eric Bischoff brings Shawn over to Raw, and they come out. They did the green thing promo when they come out, and they get in the ring. Triple H starts for the millions watching at home, we got 2 words for you. And then he turns around and pedigrees Shawn. And it's like, huh? What? This is not how that works.
Like, these are brothers. These are the best buddies. They're not supposed to. Yeah. So, and again, did great. I thought the angle was money. I thought they did a great job with it. But I think this is kind of where we're probably going to go sideways a little bit when we start talking about our opinions on number 2. We're not going to dive into it because we spent a whole chunk of it at the beginning. But John Cena turning heel Elimination Chamber is 2, not number 1. It's number 2. And look, obviously we're not going to, it just happened. Do I have to tell you when it happened? It just happened. Look, for decades, John's been the baby, the face of the company, the baby face of the company, whatever you want to call it. And it just, let me ask you this. We talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, and we were like, did you think this was going to happen? And anybody who said, oh, I knew it was going to happen, I predicted. We've already shared our thoughts on that. Short term, he's paired with The Rock. It's funny, on all of our show notes, we had long term and short term for all of these different things. And the long term, the funny is, I could only put a bunch of question marks. Because who knows? So here's where I was going to put you on the spot. He just turned heel. So what do podcasters do? I asked you the question of when does he turn back babyface? Like, how long of a run do you think we get of heel Cena? Or does he just ride it out and he retires as a heel?
He retires as a heel. John Cena retires as the greatest humanitarian, the man who's done more Make-A-Wishes, the man who is a very successful actor. I love Peacemaker. John Cena, role model for many people, retires a heel after a career and the John Cena sucks chance. Nick, I don't even know what to do. I don't know how to grasp this. What if he walks out of heel? Does that hurt long-term merchandising? If he walks out of heel, does that make him a better comic book actor?
I don't think there's any way in the world he retires. He heel. He's got to have the redemption story at the end of the year.
So
I'm
do I get Christmas?
predicting. I'm predicting Survivor Series. This is floated out there, so I'm stealing some of it. But there's a big talk of what if come Survivor Series, there's a Team Rock versus a Team Triple H fighting for control of the company, and Cena's on one, and Cena goes back babyface. Do we have to get a Rock match with Cena before he retires?
Well, they got to do it in time for Christmas so they can sell the merch. Because I mean, I've got my not, you can't see me, John Cena back there pop. I pre-ordered the John Cena retirement tour pop. I mean, do they have new heel turn Cena merch? Did they make that yet? Did they introduce that?
Haven't yet. I mean, I'm curious to see.
Because I mean,
I just, yeah, I'm just not sure there's any way he walks out. I think it wouldn't shock me. Let me rephrase that. It would be something. Would that be the most Cena thing to do? Like on his last night, he's a heel, but he's Dr. Thugonomics heel on his last night on TV.
I mean, they brought out a rapper to humiliate him. I mean, he had a rapper with him. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that he's not, or is he Dr. Thugonomics? And that's his crew now.
There's your speculation. Is the corporate John Cena that joins Rock? Does he go all the way back and go to Dr. Thugonomics with Travis Scott?
Maybe do an album. Maybe they've got some tracks they want to drop.
You never know. Again, if you want to share your thoughts, tappedoutpod@gmail.com on the John Cena turn and like what you think of it, what you think it could be leading to down the road, and would they really dare let him retire as a heel? Look, obviously that leaves number one. It's pretty cut and dry at this point. If we haven't said it by now, Hulk Hogan turning and joining the NWO. That's our number one. Bash at the Beach, July 7th. WCW. It's not a WWE one, obviously. Oh. He was literally the red and yellow. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins. You know, the baby face of baby faces, to the point people were sick of him.
Billionaire.
By the way, sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
Mm. I'm going to tell you right now, I really think this saved the Monday Night Wars. I really think this is what saved WCW long enough for the Monday Night Wars, was having Hogan do this. Tag team match. It was Macho Man and Sting versus the Outsiders.
That was a six-man.
It's a six-man.
Mm-hmm. It was Luger, Sting, and Macho versus, because Hogan came out as the third guy. He was supposed to be who was the third man, and they thought Hogan was coming out to make the save because they were putting the boots.
Oh yeah, they're putting the boot to him. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and you think I watched the video, I was like, oh, Hogan's coming, everything's great, and then he dropped the leg on Macho.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I'll take it a step further because if you don't think that the Hogan turn was a big deal, obviously there were Bischoff has come out and said, look, if it wasn't Hogan, they had to convince Hogan to do it. If it's not Hogan, it's Sting probably. It's most likely Sting, and he's like, okay, that runs at Sting's probably for 6 months to a year, and that's it. It probably runs its course. It has the legs because it's Hogan in the long run.
Yeah.
And it's bigger than just it didn't just buy WCW time. It gave that story changed so many things in wrestling. And I know, hold on, here's the thing. I'm not telling you a day will come that our number two doesn't pass this and become number one. The problem is there's not enough other information to go with to. By the way, Cena turning heel probably sits in the two because of recency bias.
Yeah, and it also may be 10 years from now, it might be way ahead of anything.
That's what I'm saying.
Out. Yeah.
So the advantage of it being recency bias gives it to number two. The disadvantages of being so recent is I can't put it over this because of everything that came after this and the significance of it. That's why this is the number one.
Has Hogan ever come back as a babyface as a human being?
Well, he did the babyface turn when he was in WWE. He'd come back. So, I mean,
I don't think it was the same. Nick, and, the ring filled up with trash. They were throwing their trash. Mean Gene was in the ring. Dusty, Bobby Heenan and Tony Schiavone were calling this. It
Mm-hmm.
was a beautiful thing to listen to, Nick. It was just, oh, it was so beautiful. And the ring filling up with trash. And I love the feelings. Feelings make me happy. And this right here just brought up so much. It brought up me working 60 hours a week and then rushing home so I could get home to watch the Monday Night Wars. Because this is the kind of thing that made me want to watch Monday nights. This is what made things special.
I mean, it like I said, it didn't just change Hogan's career; it changed everybody's, and the Halls, the Nashes. It changed WCW's trajectory. It changed the wrestling history across the board. Again, that's why we have it as our number one. Look, if you disagree, we get it. tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Look, if you're over on the Patreon at patreon.com/tappedoutpod, comment under the video, give us your list, go on and back and forth. Wait, it will be interactive as possible there. Patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Make sure, look, we get it. It's free on Patreon, but if you're a paid member, you get it early. You get the show notes if you're a paid member. You get the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight, only available currently on our Patreon page. That's it. It's the only place you can get it. And of course, again, articles, the reviews from all the TV shows, all that good stuff and more. But again, we get it. If you're look, if you're just, hey, we're YouTube guys, there you can see it. Tappedoutpod.com. That's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the page. Turn the notifications on. Make sure you're liking. Give those thumbs up for those videos and everything like that. We greatly appreciate it. Hey, share them every now and then if you like it and enjoy it. That's awesome as well.
Your mother loves watching me on video, folks. But the thing is, and this is something that kept coming up this week before we wrap. This will be the last thing I have to talk about. Everybody was like, what did Travis Scott do? Travis Scott. Why was Travis Scott out there? What did we watch last Sunday, Nick? We went to AWE Wrestling in Atlanta, and they had some rappers there and drew the biggest house they've drawn in recent memory. Do you Google stuff, people? If you're just somebody that's a Travis Scott fan and you Google Travis Scott, that's probably going to pop up in your Google feed, Travis Scott, John Cena. And you might look at it. And that just makes your views of that heel turn. And when Travis Scott slaps Cody, it makes this makes it not just a wrestling pop cultural thing. This makes it a broad pop cultural event.
The people that are asking that question, look, I'm throwing this out there since, again, Nick's opinion. I'm not speaking for everybody. The people that are asking those questions don't know who Travis Scott is. If you know who Travis Scott is and what he's accomplished in the music industry, you're not asking that question why he's there, or you shouldn't be. And apparently, by the way, the guy's been training to be in wrestling. Probably needs a little more because the story's coming out that he possibly busted his eardrum when he did that shot to the head. That's another story for either here or there. I mean, look, you're going to make it count, right? I guess. I mean,
hey, dude, everybody's going to watch that. Don't whiff it.
There's a clip of him when he connects with Cody on the ground. It's a rough shot. We'll leave it at that. If you can find that, it's rough. But that's my point. If people. The people that ask, like, oh, why is Bad Bunny in the ring? Why is Travis Scott in the ring? Why? Stop asking. Like, you clearly, if you're asking that question, you don't get why they're there, and there's nothing anyone's going to say to change your mind on why it matters. That's just my take.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have had Travis Scott in the ring at the AWA, and they wouldn't have had Travis Scott in the ring at one of these older promotions that are not in business anymore. But that's not today's business model. Today's business model is about views and likes and drawing attention to what you're doing. And that's how you do it, folks. I mean, if we could get Travis Scott on this show, don't you think? I mean, Travis Scott, if you're not busy next Tuesday, usually around 12 o'clock.
We're recording. Yeah.
Yeah. Hit me up.
Yeah. So... But anyway, we hope you like, this new format, the top 10 heels of all time. Again, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Send your list, send your comments, all that stuff to there. We greatly appreciate it. Anything else before we get out of here, man?
No, I have enjoyed this so much. It's so, I'm in my wrestling zen right now, man.
Well, that's it, man. What's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.